Okay, guys, so after speaking with everybody, it seems to me you guys are still having a hard time with the two-step conversion, and some of you guys have asked me to make a video on how to do this step by step. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one we're going to do is going to be particles to grams. Remember, particles is the same thing as atoms. Moles are always, or atoms are presented as representative particles. So when you see particles like you see here, you can just think of them as if they were atoms. All right. Now, we're given 2.74 times 10 to the 20th particles of sodium phosphate, and I want to know how many grams of sodium phosphate we have. So remember, if you're starting in particles or atoms, you first have to go to moles, and then once you're in moles, then you can go to grams. Right? So the first thing we have to identify then is, are we going from atoms to moles, moles to atoms, or grams to moles? Right? This is the first process, so we're going to have to convert from atoms to moles. I know that because we're starting with particles slash atoms. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So our first conversion is going to be atoms or particles to moles. All right. Let's go ahead and get going here. Okay, first things first, okay, the first thing I have to do is I have to find my conversion factor, right? And we're going to abbreviate this as find CF, right? Find the conversion factor. Now, when we're going from atoms to moles, or moles to atoms, or particles, right? What's always going to be the conversion factor? Well, you got to remember, when you see atoms, or A, or particles, you always have to be thinking of Avogadro's number, right? Avogadro's number is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd atoms or particles. Since this never changes, then my conversion factor is going to be as follows. 1 mole of sodium phosphate is equal to 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles. Of sodium phosphate. Okay, there's my conversion factor, right? So now we can set up our problem, okay? I'm going to do this in 2 steps just to make sure you guys understand it. Now, the first step is I have to take my given. What's my given? Well, my given is right here. It's 2.74 times 10 to the 20th. So 2.74 times 10 to the 20th particles. I'm going to abbreviate as part of Na3PO4. And I'm going to put that over 1. Now I'm going to multiply this by my conversion factor. So here's my conversion factor, right? I have 1 mole of Na3PO4, sodium phosphate, and I have 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles, right? I have 1 value, I have 2 values, and I have 2 empty spaces. What do you mean 2 empty spaces, mister? I don't get it. Well, I have an empty space here, and I have an empty space here. So all you have to do is figure out which one of these 2 goes on bottom. Do I put the moles on bottom, or do I put the particles on bottom? Well, here's a hint. If you have particles here, then you need particles here. So because I have particles here, I'm going to put the particles down here. And which are the particles for this problem? In this problem, it's 6.022. 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles. Okay, and I know that 1 mole, right, of Na3PO4 goes on top. Because if I use this one on bottom, then this one has to go on top. So what happens to my particles? Well, my particles cancel. If my particles cancel, what's the only unit left? Well, the only unit left that didn't get canceled out was the moles, right? So I'm going to go ahead and carry that one over. Moles of Na3PO4. So since those are going to be my only units, then I know, based on this setup, that this number is going to be divided by this one. So if I take this number and I divide it by this one, I should end up with 0.004 moles of Na3PO4. So now I've converted from particles, or atoms, to moles. All right. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay? Make sure you have all this written down. And then next, we're going to go ahead and take this value here, okay, and convert that to grams. Because remember, we're going from atoms to moles and then from moles to grams. And we want to end up at grams. So we're not done yet. Go ahead and pause the video, and then we'll pick up where we left off. Okay, I went ahead and cleaned up the screen a little bit. If you need to go back and finish writing something down, go ahead and just rewind it, copy what you need to copy, and then come back here so we can get started. Okay, now we left off converting from atoms to moles, right? So we've done this conversion here, and we ended up with 0.004 moles of sodium phosphate. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so now we're going to do the next step in the conversion. We're at moles, and now we need to get to grams. So let's go ahead and set up that part of the conversion. All right, now we've already done this part here, right? We're here. And now we're going to go to the next step. So we got to, now that we're in moles, we got to go from moles to grams. Okay? Now, first thing I'm thinking about when I see the word grams should be the word mass, because grams are a unit of mass. Now, there's two types of masses. There's atomic mass and there's molar mass. You have to figure out which one you're going to find. Right? In this case, because I have a compound, right, sodium phosphate, I know I'm going to need to find molar mass. So once I take the molar mass, you guys should know how to do this. If you don't, please revisit my video. Now, the molar mass of this compound ended up being, let's see, molar mass ended up being 163.1 grams per mole. Okay, so now I have my molar mass. So how do I turn this molar mass into a conversion factor? Well, the conversion factor is always going to be to 1 mole, right? So 1 mole of Na3PO4 sodium phosphate is equal to 163.1 grams of sodium phosphate. Guys, you need to get into the habit of writing this conversion factor right here. This is your conversion factor. You need to start writing these down, because this is how you avoid making those mistakes of not knowing where to put the moles and where to put the grams. So we have our conversion factor. Let's go ahead and set up our problem. Remember, we're here. We've already found moles. So our given for this problem is going to be 0.004 moles of sodium phosphate. I'm going to put that over 1. That's my given, over 1. Then I'm going to multiply by the conversion factor. So in this case, I have two values. Okay, and again, just like before, I have two empty spaces. Okay, all you have to do is figure out which one goes on the bottom. Since I have moles here, then I have to put moles here. So on the bottom, I'm going to put 1 mole of Na3PO4. And on top, I'm going to put the molar mass, 163.1 grams of Na3PO4. What happens to my moles? Well, my moles cancel, right? They disappear. What's the only unit left? Well, the only unit left in this case is grams of sodium phosphate, so that's going to be the one that I carry over, right? And I multiply everything across the top, everything across the bottom, and when I multiply those two numbers, I end up with 0.587, everything across the bottom, by 1. So if I divide by 1, I end up with the same number all over again, right? So here you go. Sorry, I had to move it a little bit over to get some space. 0.587 divided by 1 gives me the same answer again, 0.587. And again, the unit left over was grams sodium phosphate. All right, so there you go. I've just gone from atoms to moles, moles to grams. Okay, you don't have to do it in the two-step process. For me, it's a little bit easier, but if you want to do it in one fluid conversion, you can do that too. I'm going to go ahead and upload this video, and then I'll upload another one tonight of going from grams back to atoms. All right, if you guys have any questions, let me know.